A raft filled with immigrants. A smuggler quietly rows them across the Rio Grande from Mexico to the United States. Hidden from view, we watch until the raft is out of sight. It takes only minutes before the smuggler is back across the river, filling his raft again with human cargo. For the smugglers, these people are just that and nothing more. Human cargo, commodities, desperate people to be taken advantage of. Chief Manuel Padilla runs the Border Patrol's Rio Grande Valley sector.
$5,000 per person, whether you're a child or an adult, goes to the cartel, to the criminal organizations. And so why would they stop? Why would they stop if there is really not a lot of consequences to the smugglers? For us, the impact is that this money is fueling the violence of the cartels.
Within minutes of crossing, they are in the hands of U.S. Border Patrol agents, 19 men, women, and children. These migrants entering illegally are all from Honduras, seeking asylum in the U.S. to escape, they say, violence in their country. Saidi, a single mother, told us she had a small business, hardly made enough money to feed her 2 children. That didn't matter to the gangs who wanted a cut of what she made.
I didn't have enough to pay, so they threatened me. They issued an ultimatum to me. They didn't give me any options. I didn't know what to do.
Do you think, were you brave the whole time coming here? Did you take care of your mom and your sister?
Amongst the group are 3 unaccompanied minors. 2 are just teenage girls, 13 and 14 years old. We've blurred their faces. They tell us they were living with their grandfather. Now their parents in Dallas, they say, are waiting for them. Not far from here, the scene is repeated. 3 more families from Honduras have turned themselves into agents.
Anoche cruzamos el río.
Last night we crossed the river.
Last night?
Sí.
Some friends helped us with money because we don't have money.
Para poder cruzar porque no traemos dinero.
They told us all their possessions, including the baby's diapers, were stolen on the other side. After crossing, they slept by the road.
En la calle y bendito sea Dios que encontramos a ustedes que nos ayudaron.
What we witnessed, what you are seeing, takes place every day in this part of Texas near the border city of McAllen. 90% of the people here are Hispanic Americans. Many feel a sense of pity for what the immigrants go through.
We had a little rush.
Carolina Garza runs Maria's restaurant. It has been here for 40 years.
We see them being processed. We see them sent to the bus station. We see them given their paperwork. We see exactly who these people are. And it's mostly women and children, young teenagers.
And what they see has never happened here before. Thousands of people, mostly from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, fleeing to the U.S. The number of families crossing the border illegally from these 3 countries just here in the Rio Grande Valley is, Chief Padilla says, the highest in the history of the Border Patrol.
We have about 53,000 year to date, this fiscal year. When you have a family unit, what is happening right now, because of the loopholes in the immigration law, they're getting, for the most part, caught and released. So this is a whole, the catch and release thing. When you have that dynamic, when you catch people and do not return them to their country, or there is no consequence to their illegal entry, you create a magnet. You actually create an invitation, if you will, for more people in that category to come in.
Desperation and fear have fueled the exodus from Central America. In Honduras, more than 60% of the population lives in poverty. Gang warfare is rampant. El Salvador has been described as one of the most violent countries on the planet. Guatemala is consumed with violence, poverty, and drug trafficking. In all 3 countries, the gangs and drug traffickers have little regard for human life. Many of the immigrants detained by Border Patrol will end up at this respite center run by Catholic Charities. Here they'll be given clean clothes, something to eat, and a place to sleep. They come in dozens at a time. After they're processed by immigration officials, they are dropped off at the bus station where volunteers from the Respite Center meet them and bring them here. The center opened the doors in 2014 in response to a wave of unaccompanied children crossing the border. Sister Norma Pimentel saw a need and called on everyone she knew to help.
I think we need milk, we need Pampers, we need wipes because we didn't even have showers or anything like that. We had no clue what we were up against and what we needed. So that first night we had 200 families that we immediately started to help.
200 right off the bat?
Right off the bat.
The doors have been open ever since. On this day, 150 people have come through the doors.
They come because they're afraid. They're afraid for their lives. There's no future for their child. And so they don't see beyond that point other than what they are presently faced with right now. And right now they're seeing that their child is in great danger.
The adults wear GPS monitors strapped to their ankles. They and their families have been released because they have a sponsor in the U.S. to take them in until they eventually go before an immigration judge. Meet Edilsa. She's 27 years old.
I was nervous and afraid of being caught by Mexican immigration. That was all during the trip from Guatemala to here.
She made the journey with her 4 young children between the ages of 6 and 2. The only time the children were afraid, Edilsa says, is when they were in custody of U.S. authorities.
When we were already in the hands of immigration, we were already inside. They got desperate because they don't have freedom there.
Thirsty, their faces beet red from the sun, they sat patiently at the Respite Center, waiting their mother's turn to talk with a volunteer.
When I was asked once, "Sister, what are you doing here?" My answer was, "We're restoring human dignity. That's what we're doing."
Edilsa and the children are going to Boston. Her husband has been living there a year, she says. Eventually, she and the others here will have their day in court to state their case for asylum.
Do they end up staying permanently, the ones that end up here? Do you know what a percentage is that actually get an asylum claim approved?
You know, it's very difficult for them to get an asylum claim approved because it's not easy and they need legal advice, they need legal representation. And if they don't have that, the chances of them staying here are zero. They will be deported. They are deported, almost 100% of them.
Despite the faint hopes, the immigrants keep coming because that is all they have, hope. Chief Padilla doesn't see an end anytime soon.
The family units and the unaccompanied children, it doesn't matter what resources we bring to bear, we will not impact this group because they're turning themselves in. So the solution for that is truly a legislative solution. We have to redo the immigration laws and the policies. I think this administration is very, very focused on securing our borders.
Back along the border, agents have their hands full. The families who give themselves up are generally easy to handle. They know how the system works. They will be turned over to immigration, processed, and likely released to a sponsor. But there are others, many others, criminals, gang members, people who have been deported in the past, trying to evade capture and sneak back in. Before the sun has come up, a National Guard helicopter with infrared is tracking a group on the run. The helicopter crew passes the information to agents on the ground who are closing in.
They know that we're on them already, so they're making their way kind of like a swampy area.
There are more than 3,000 agents working the 316 miles of the Rio Grande Valley sector. This is the hotbed for human smuggling. 53% of all illegals entering the U.S. southern border are coming through here. This group didn't make it. By the time the sun came up, they were caught. Agent Luis Rodriguez.
And this group is one of those that, unlike a lot that come in, this group did not want to be caught.
Oh yeah. These guys wanted to take off on us, but today was not their day.
One of the men says his name is Rodolfo. This is the second time he's been caught.
But you don't think you're going to do this anymore?
Nah.
You're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
One of the agents doesn't think the man's story adds up. He wants to check out Rodolfo's tattoos.
What do you have on your back?
Gross.
Let's turn this way and see your back.
Across the bottom of his back, the name Houston. And in a small spot, the agent sees the number 13. Law enforcement tells us that after checking his identity, Rodolfo is affiliated with the violent gang MS-13.
When it comes to the MS-13 gang, we're seeing an over 200% increase in comparison to last year. So that's about 240 more or less MS-13 members that we've detained this year.
Agents say sensors, tower cameras, helicopters are giving them a bit of a tactical advantage.
And we had talked about also that the wall acts to force them in many respects to what you could call a choke point, right?
Absolutely. So we saw that today in two different groups that were apprehended. Rather than crossing or scaling the wall here, they went straight north in some orange groves and through some thick brush because they didn't want to make that attempt to scale the wall.
And there wasn't a wall. The wall's not there, so...
Exactly.
55 of the 316 miles of the Rio Grande Valley sector is protected by a wall. Between the wall and the technology being brought to bear, the size of the smuggling migrant groups has changed. Where it used to be 30 to 50 at a time, it's now 5 to 7 on average.
And we have a fighting chance now.
Of course, there are those who get away. The helicopter is only a few feet above the high brush. Agents on the ground are working the dense cover.
This gives you a good idea of how difficult it is for the agents working out here, trudging through this thick underbrush.
A smuggler is in here somewhere. Suddenly, he appears in the river, swimming back to Mexico, holding his cell phone over his head. As we were leaving the border, Agent Rodriguez spots a group running across an open field. Rodriguez jumps out to chase one down. During our 6 hours with Border Patrol, more than 50 migrants trying to cross illegally were taken into custody. Back at the Respite Center, the journey is about to continue for many. They each have an envelope with documents, written on the outside, bus information, and a note that reads, "Please help me. I do not speak English. What bus do I need to take?" The group begins a short walk to the bus station. They will be going to other parts of Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Oscar waits inside for his bus. He's going to New Orleans, where his brother lives.
I need Honduras. It's not got money. Nothing. It's necessary for my family. You know. I need a mejor vida for my family here in Honduras. No.
And so the daily, never-ending ritual continues. The migrants are caught, criminals, families, unaccompanied children, those who have been deported in the past. They are all blended together in the landscape of the Rio Grande Valley.